been a few announcements in the last couple of days around big data in the cloud. Google introduced something called Cloud Data Proc.
Yep.
Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what your understanding of that is. And Microsoft had a couple of announcements.
With the Azure Data Lake.
Azure Data Lake, and also their flavor of Hadoop, HD Insight on Linux, went into general availability on Monday.
This is not your father's Microsoft.
And in fact, to that point, Microsoft and Datamir announced a tie-up today.
Yeah.
So, what's going on? Primary question: what's going on with data analysis in the cloud, and how enterprise is that, or isn't it? And second of all, what about this not being my father's Microsoft? And what does that mean about the power of analytics, if anything?
Well, where do I start on that one?
Start with the cloud.
Okay. First off, traditionally the cloud has been, the conventional wisdom is that the cloud is the option for like small, mid-sized enterprises that are not going to have IT organizations, or if you're doing proof of concepts. Essentially what the cloud really is, it's kind of like a rent versus buy sort of proposition. And that for many, or a lease versus buy.
A lease versus buy and set up all by yourself, right?
Yeah. The economics are lease versus buy, but also as part of that, what goes into the equation is that, the conventional wisdom is that after a certain number of years, it's going to be more economical to buy. But on the other hand, when you start working in, do I have the resources to manage, to set this up? That then skews the economics to the point that basically that buying would be unaffordable, and so therefore you will still have to stay the lease option. So I think the cloud has that type of, I think it certainly has that type of draw, no question about that. The other thing is it's very good if you want to take a very agile type of orientation, in that you still may have on-premise analytics. Mm-hmm. But if you now have a problem that you want to basically, that you would like to, you're doing some exploratory analytics, you want to try out some new data sets or munch some different mixes of data sets, the cloud is a great place to do this. And maybe you'll continue to, you might do that just in the beginning as your proof of concept. You may keep that in the cloud because maybe the administrative overhead of bringing back on-premise may be too great. So I do see that the cloud, and I have to say, I'm telling you from the standpoint, I've not done extensive research on this, but instinctively, it's kind of like, this is truthiness here, that the cloud, ultimately is going to be a very attractive option for organizations that want to move fast on something. And it helps them keep their options open in terms of where they run it.
So I wonder about data gravity though, right? Getting one's data or one's enterprise's data up to cloud storage in order to do the analytics there seems
a lift.
Seems
Literally.
a lift. Unless it's that people are starting to keep their data in cloud storage as the primary source more and more.
Well,
is
again,
that what's happening?
Well, put it this way, which is that, remember I was giving that lease versus buy metaphor.
Right.
And you would say, well, what about organizations that don't have the resources? Where does that factor in? That factors into the cost of buying.
Right.
Again, if you have data that is on-prem and you want, and you want to move it to the cloud, that in turn is a form of a cost. And that is really more of a strategic decision in terms of, do you plan to continue, is this high value data that you want to continue to maintain on premises, or that it's lower value that you want to put in the cloud, or that you've made a strategic decision that you do not want to be in the business of running your systems on premises anymore.
Right.
So there's no single formula that's going to apply to every organization.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So this cloud data proc thing, I looked at it.
Yeah.
It's almost like this is a service for Google's other data services, but it's still fascinating because what it does is it spins up, it seems somewhat virtual, but it spins up a Hadoop cluster, or notably a Spark cluster, to dial back to what we were talking about before, in about 90 seconds.
And the thing is
then can take them down just as fast and then bring it back up.
It's the shiny new thing. It's the shiny new piece. The thing is that it's the classic tortoise and the hare, and that basically you've got Amazon, and in terms of technology, Amazon, relatively speaking, and probably I'll wash my mouth out. I'll probably end up recanting my words next week because I'm going out to reInvent next week. So I'll get the Amazon side, but
have fun
Amazon
in Vegas.
Amazon is not known as being a technology leader in terms of like specific platform technologies. What they're a leader in is basically is that they put together the whole cloud stack.
Sure.
And they have that over everybody. And the thing is that, and they also have the huge mind share, but they also have the operational knowledge and experience. So yes, Google
So they're
may
an
have,
integrator. They're an SI.
basically, yeah. A very low-touch SI. And that has worked for the business that they've been shooting for, which is the infrastructure as a service.
Right.
Google, which basically has not known how to market to enterprises, is now trying to to tap its expertise in terms of what how it's run its own big operations. Same origin as Amazon, except Amazon did this like 10 years ago. Saying, hey, we have better technology. Let's roll this out. Well, that's fine. But the thing is, it may be faster to deploy on Google, but does Google have the management? Do they have the integration that Amazon has in its cloud and between all the different pieces of its data stack?
Or the will to succeed in this business when their mainline business is so
right, well, it's
incredibly
concentration.
lucrative.
Well, the same thing could have been said about Amazon as well. It's just that Amazon has had a mission to diversify its business from I won't say from day one, but maybe from about like day 10.
Right.
And so Amazon has made that a model, whereas like Google is, outside of basically, outside of its core search engine, outside of things like YouTube, outside of Android. I mean, which is pretty impressive.
Right.
Their record, their track record in starting new, let's say whether it be consumer or enterprise services, has been extremely spot on.
Right. Listen, I think maybe we should close with a question about something called the Open Data Platform Initiative, or ODPI. It's sort of settled, pioneered, if you will, by Hortonworks and IBM and Pivotal.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because it seems actually like Hortonworks is taking less of a dominant role in it. But it's all about defining something of a spec that various Hadoop distributions can keep to. And I don't know, I'm reminded a little bit of Unix in the 80s, right? And the attempts to take all the fragmented versions of Unix and kind of standardize them.
Right.
But you think this will be successful?
I think what it's going to do...
And what do you think of the underlying need?
Look, I think what it really means is that it allows IBM and Pivotal to direct their energies elsewhere. Mm-hmm. That's really what it means.
There's a bunch more companies in it than those three now.
Right, but in terms of developing, those are the Hadoop platform providers, and so for them it's that, okay, we don't have to keep up with this race with the Apache open source project to do all the certifications. This is going to simplify that. So for them,
right,
it's a good strategy to redirect their resources. I mean, basically Pivotal laid off most of their Hadoop staff probably about 6 months prior, to the announcement. I mean, what does that tell you? Fact
do you
is,
think Cloudera will join this initiative, or do you think that's like a hell freezing over kind of thing?
Basically, choose your metaphor. The boat has sailed, the train's left the station.
Yeah.
But basically, Cloudera has its own. Has its own platform. Hortonworks has its platform. There's a certain commonality, which is at the API level, but otherwise, really, I think what it really means is that Hadoop itself is commodity, and that all these providers don't want to have to waste their time having to reinvent the wheel. And so where you're seeing them differentiate is in like lifecycle management, governance, security, different forms of query, and so it's really the higher value. It's the higher. It's more. It's
not just about support and training anymore.
Exactly.
For these guys, right?
I mean, I don't want to say it's at the application level, but it's going higher up the stack because that's where the value is. Because there's only so much you can make selling a Hadoop platform.
Right. Especially if it's all open source.
Yeah.
I tried to pour you more, but the bottles are empty, and I think that's a sign that
I'm thirsty.
We're pretty much at the end of our chat.
Or you have driven me to drink.
I could do this over several beers with you, but we try and keep it succinct here on Big Data and Brews. So this is Andrew Bruss thanking Tony Baer for being our guest.
Good to see you,
Come back
Andrew,
and
once again.
come back and visit.
We'll be glad to, as long as the beer's free.
All right.